Welcome to part 5 of the job interview course. In this section, we're going to teach you how to improve your job interview identity, having a big focus on overcoming anxiety and becoming more confident in the job interview environment. Imagine walking downstairs and you see the applicant that you're going to interview. They're sat in a confident posture, they've got a nice suit or dress on, the hair's done well, they're smiling, they're maybe even chatting to the receptionist. As you walk over, they stand up, look you directly in the eye, pile the hand and give a confident introduction while shaking your hand. That is going to create such a positive initial impression, especially when your application form stated how you have a unique skill that the employer desires above anything else. When you get to the job interview itself, the interviewer asks you a question about why you apply for this position, or tell me a little bit about your own experiences. And during that initial answer, you talk charismatically, you explain your duration in the industry, all your qualifications, all the achievements that you have achieved and the successes that you have gained. You do this in a well-paced way, varying your tonality, looking at each of the interview panel in the eye, creating a strong interview identity. These little elements collectively create the strongest filter for the rest of your interview answers to be filtered through. So the person who's interviewing now wants you to do well in the interview. They want to hire you. They can see you working for their team. So as you're answering the next interview question, they're seeing that from a positive perspective. There are two different ways to job hunt. One, you have a generic application that you send off to hundreds and hundreds of different employers, playing the numbers game. If only 5% of those applications result in job interviews, then that is enough to eventually secure a job offer. The second way is to tailor each individual application so all the examples in the application form meet the job criteria. This takes a lot longer, but you're more likely to receive an interview for each individual application. The problem with the first situation is that the application might state enough experience and qualifications for you to be offered a job interview. But prior to the actual interview itself, the interview panel will reread that application. And in their deliberations while reading your application, they might say, they've got enough experience, they've got a couple of qualifications, but they haven't really got specific knowledge on this area, or they're not really talk about this key criteria, creating the Horns effect. They might have a negative opinion about you before you start the actual job interview. But someone who knows the 3 rules of a successful job interview can turn that job interview around very quickly. By opening your interview answer by stating strongly how you have a long duration in the industry, you have specific skills, specific experiences, a unique selling point, and you communicate this with confidence because you understand the job criteria, how to self-promote, and you communicate more confidently than other people. It can be enough, one, to break that pattern from, I thought this person was going to be rubbish, but now they sound highly knowledgeable and highly suitable for the role. So the Horns effect just disappears because the new job interview identity replaces that negative funnel. The positive funnel has been put into place. And because the mind likes shortcuts as well, once it's created this new funnel, this positive interview identity, all the preceding answers will be filtered through that. If for some reason that first answer is negative, that just reinforces the Horns effect. So I know this applicant is going to be rubbish. They're not answering the questions very well, so they're not going to get the job role. So the preceding questions are then filtered through a negative filter. So this is why the 3 rules of a successful job interview are so important. By knowing the criteria, you can talk specifically about random essential criteria, duties, and even the culture of the organisation. Being a self-promoter means you frame things in such a way that it sounds like your best practice or your most successful project is something you do every single day. And because you communicate with confidence, which shows a high level of self-esteem, you're more likely to build rapport and likability and be desired by the employer. Referencing the job criteria alone isn't enough to create high-scoring job interview answers. What is also key to being successful in the job interview is the language and the varying language used throughout the whole recruitment process. Language creates emotion. when you describe an experience or a situation, or you tell a story to the interviewer, they visualize what it is you're saying based on the language that you choose to use. What we find with low confidence applicants is they use weak language. They'll use words like try. Try presumes failure, whereas will presumes action. So what you need to be doing is substituting passive words. So instead of using try, use will. Instead of think, use know. Instead of could, use always. Instead of I believe, use I'm confident. You need to start deleting negative language out of your interview answers. Are you the sort of person who says, in my opinion? Do you apologise for your mistakes by saying sorry? Or the weak words like maybe or I did my best? What you need to do throughout the job interview is be highly positive and be a self-promoter. High scoring language is often varied language. What you can do is find new ways to say common words. As an example, the word begin, start, commence and initiate are all synonyms of one another. We find this time and time again that confident people use emotive and varied language. So what you need to do now is pause this video and answer this interview question. So the interview question is, tell me what you bring to the organisation. So tell me what you will bring to the organisation. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to answer that question. Okay, now you're back. What sort of language were you using in that interview answer? Was your language strength-based? Did it showcase your talents, your skills, your unique selling point? Or was it more apologetic? Was you using weak words? Was you not really describing what you could bring to the team? Recently, I was working with a client who was very successful in his career, but really struggled in the job interview environment. And it was very interesting actually because I got a copy of his application form before he came for the interview coaching session and understood exactly why he was successful. I could see from his application the sort of details he went into in his day-to-day job, and his work ethic came across as very strong as well, and it was very clear why this professional was a successful person. And when he came to me, I asked him an interview question, and I asked him to tell me a little bit about what he's been doing for the last 5 or 10 years. And he said, well, I mainly support underperforming businesses to be successful. And on its own, that sounds like quite a positive line, but in reality, it undersold exactly what he did, because his CV was so descriptive that I had the halo effect with him. I thought he was going to blow me out the water. I thought his answer was going to be highly promotional, but it wasn't. It was very weak in terms of his delivery. And what we worked on is how to reframe that and to add in some of the real unique selling points that he had. And we came up with the interview answer that is this. For the last 10 years, I've been helping underperforming companies on the brink of bankruptcy turn into multi-million-pound organisations. So the two lines represented what he did for a living, but the second line was highly self-promotional. Like, I was so surprised when he delivered the first answer that he didn't talk about the amount of money the organisations were turning over once he'd helped them on their journey, making companies that were on the brink of bankruptcy into multi-million-pound organisations. So what you need to think is, when you're talking about your experiences, are you underselling yourself? Do you talk about the day-to-day tasks that everyone does in your organisation? Do you pick out the business as usual objectives? Because what you really want to be focusing your interview answers on, you want to be focusing the stories on the excellent work that you have been doing. You need to bring out the unique events that you've been in charge of or part of. You need to talk about problems that people who are interviewing you will recognise and see as a massive difficulty to overcome, and explain the steps that you took to achieve on that problem and to be successful. Imagine, instead of attending a 45-minute job interview, you had to pitch yourself in 30 to 60 seconds. This is what we call the elevator pitch. Imagine stepping into an elevator with your future employer, and you got the time it takes from the elevator leaving the ground floor going all the way to the top floor to talk about your skills, talents and your unique selling point. In the previous example where the gentleman talked about how he worked with organisations on the brink of bankruptcy and turned them into highly profitable businesses, he identified a barrier and a solution. And this is what you need to do during the job interview. Think about the common barriers that people in your sector face and how your unique skills, talents and experiences can help them overcome those potential barriers. As an example, someone working in the retail industry might talk about how they have empathy, listening and communication skills that help them get individuals who are making complaints to become lifelong customers. So what I want you to do now is pause this video and you're going to craft your own elevator pitch. In the elevator pitch, I want you to think about the common problems or barriers that your future employer might be facing. Then think about what you can offer as a solution to help that employer achieve their long-term business objectives. So I want you to pause the video now. I want you to write a 30 to 60 second elevator pitch, which should only be 1 or 2 lines, and then record yourself making that pitch. So imagine you're making that pitch to an employer, but record it on your phone or your computer. So do that now. Great, well done. So now you should have completed your elevator pitch exercise. What I want you to do again is pause the video while you re-watch that film of you delivering your 30 to 60 second pitch. And when you re-watch that film, I want you to notice 2 things. So the first one is, are you stating solutions to common industry related problems? Because this is what you need to be doing in the job interview all the time. Always focusing on the solutions, the advantages of employing you rather than someone who's in competition with you for that particular role. Second, I want you to look at how confident you come across while communicating. Is your pitch filled with filler words or are you utilising pauses? Do you change your tonality to maintain interest? Does your volume go up and down? Do you decrease and increase your speed? Do you put emotions into the words that you are saying? Because it's all these subtle signs that are picked up by the unconscious mind that an employer uses to make a judgment if you're hireable or not. So we have 2 things that influences an employer's decision making process. It's the words that you say, the language that you use, how you frame your interview answer, but also the way you say it. You've got to come across as engaging, charismatic and confident. So reflect on your elevator pitch. And again, if you don't come across as someone who is hireable, remake that video, because practice creates perfection. People fear the unknown. This is why people are scared of job interviews. It's not something we do every single day or every single week. In addition to this, often when we poll the most common fears and phobias, public speaking and being the centre of attention is often ranked in the 1st, 2nd or 3rd place. Often people are more scared of speaking than they are of dying. So what you need to learn to pass the job interview is how to communicate confidently. Now there's 3 ways to help improve your communication skills. Number 1, join an improv class. Improv classes are great for job interviews because you get put onto stage, given a situation, and you have to talk about that situation with no preparation. Number 2, join a public speaking class. In public speaking groups, you get put onto stage, deliver a prepared speech to a large audience, helping you to learn how to communicate to strangers. Number 3, get an interview coach from employmentking.co.uk. The Employment Coach will deliver a mock interview and give you feedback on your delivery and content. To be a great communicator, you have to follow the old proverb, practice makes perfect. Anxiety destroys your interview. When you're feeling anxious, your body reacts completely different to what it does in a natural waking state. You have sweaty arms, shaky legs, your heartbeat is erratic, and you breathe often from the top of your chest. In this state, which is a fight and flight state, it's often hard to recall information that you need to present during the job interview process. Your mind goes blank. When you're in your rest and digest state, your natural waking state, when you're feeling calm and confident, your body is more relaxed and your brain is operational, so you can recall the required information to give a high scoring job interview answer. As well as being a careers advisor, I'm a qualified and trained hypnotherapist who specialises in helping people overcome fears, phobias and anxiety. So I'm going to teach you some of the techniques I use with my clients to get them to overcome their lifelong fears and phobias. So the first technique I want to teach you is rhythmic breathing. Now this is a very simple but very effective technique. All you do is breathe in through your nose for 4 long sessions. So as an example, you breathe in like this for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds as well. And then finally you breathe out deeply through your mouth for 4 seconds. So it sounds a little bit like this. So we're going to do that together. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then breathe out for 4 seconds. So in through the nose, hold, and then out through the mouth. And I'll count us down. So get ready to breathe in. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out forcefully for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now as you repeat that 5 or 6 times, that'll send a relaxation signal to your brain, helping you to be in that rest and digest state. You'll often find as well that when you're feeling really anxious that you struggle to take deep breaths. So it's the rhythmic breathing technique that will allow your mind, body and soul to relax. So you might think that will be a little bit strange to do during the interview process. So deep breathing through your nose and forcing that out would seem a little bit silly. So that technique is something you want to do prior to getting into your car or onto the bus and going to the job interview. So what you're trying to do here is relax your mind and body prior to setting off to the job interview. The second technique that I want to teach you is all about visualization, and you can do this actually while you're waiting to be invited to the job interview room when you're in the reception of the organisation that you're being interviewed at. You can also do it a couple of nights before the job interview as well to train your brain so it's in that process of being confident days and hours before actually going to the recruitment event. What you'll find is when you're scared of something, you'll often imagine that situation in your mind's eye. So I want you to think about a forthcoming job interview. When you imagine this job interview, do you see yourself as an anxious person? Do you see yourself failing? Do you see yourself having imposter syndrome? And most people will do. But what they do is they make a massive, vivid picture of this negative situation. They see themselves sat on the chair, delivering terrible answers, looking unconfident, sweating, being nervous and having a blank mind. They can even see the employer tutting and nodding and thinking, why had this person come to the interview? They're not suitable for this position at all. These thoughts are often like a film. You often see it from your own eyes as if you're reliving that past event or that future situation. And it's because of this vivid memory or this vivid imagination that you have this strong associated emotions. Because if you see something that makes you fearful, you'll feel that fear inside you. Just as if you imagine yourself being confident, you'll feel that confident feeling inside you. So there's a 5-step process for getting rid of anxiety attached to the visualizations that we create in our mind prior to going to a job interview. So step number 1, I want you to imagine that job interview in your mind's eye now, but I want you to push that thought so it's in front of you. So push it out of your mind so you can see it in front of you. You can see the edges of that film. And because often these thoughts are a moving image like a film, I want you to imagine you can pause that film. So step number 2 is to pause the film. And now the film has paused, we're going to go into step number 3, which is draining the colour out of that picture. So now you have a stilled black and white photograph, so drain all the colour out of that picture. For step number 4, I want you to imagine going to an art gallery where you see those old, large iron or wooden frames, and I want to put your interview black and white still picture in one of those massive iron or wooden frames. So step number 4 is put your black and white picture into a big picture frame. So already you might have noticed that part of your anxiety start to drop and started to disappear. For the final step, I want you to imagine that I can reach into that picture, take a hold of it and push it further and further away from you. So the more I push it and drag it further away from you, the smaller that picture becomes. So it's the size of a postcard, and then I push it further and further away from you, so it becomes the size of a stamp, and then further and further away still, so it's the dot on a horizon. Now if I push this picture towards you again, it got bigger, brighter and more vivid, you'll notice that your anxiety starts to increase. So let me again push it further and further away, all the way now, so it's the dot on the horizon, and just let that dot float away into outer space. So this technique is a great technique, and again it's a technique that you want to repeat a couple of times to help train your brain to feel more relaxed and calm in the job interview. All you have to do is think of an interview situation that makes you nervous, scared or uncomfortable. Push that thought outside your head, pause that film so it becomes a still picture, drain the colour so it's black and white, put it in a big old art frame, and then push that picture further and further away so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears. Self-esteem is linked to confidence, and confidence is linked to delivering strong job interview answers. So this exercise is all about getting your self-esteem to be a little bit higher by recognizing your skills, your talents and your qualities. To do this, I want you to think about 3 significant people in your life. That could be a colleague or a manager, it could be a friend, or it could be a family member. It's entirely up to you. I want you to get 3 pieces of paper, and on those pieces of paper I want you to write down each person's name. So one piece of paper has one name, the second, and the third has the final and third name. One at a time I want you to think about this person, but think about what they positively like about you. And on that piece of paper I want you to mind map everything they like about you, your skills, your talents and your qualities, anything that they admire. It might be your work ethic, your resilience, the way you talk, the way you walk. It could even be how you self-motivate yourself, or how you're always on time. It doesn't matter what you write down, as long as you write down the positive things that these people would say about you. When doing the one for a colleague or manager, you can imagine being in an appraisal with them when they're talking about your work-based strengths and talents, and that will give you an extra list of skills and qualities that people admire in you. So I want you to pause the video now, write down 3 significant people's names on 3 pieces of paper, and one by one I want you to imagine being this person and writing a list of things that they like about you. So skills, qualities, talents and even unique selling points. So do that now, and then we'll come back in a couple of minutes. Great, well done. So now you should have 3 pieces of paper with lots of positive skills, qualities and references about you, things that people like about you. What I want you to do now is get a highlighter pen. I want you to highlight the commonality across these 3 people. So is everyone saying that you're reliable, or is everyone saying that you're confident, or is everyone saying that you're a friendly person? It doesn't matter what these commonalities are, what these common traits are, but I want you to highlight these common traits, because now you can start to understand what people see in you and what their common positive responses are about certain traits that you possess. And this is a great exercise to do, is to actually think about how other people perceive you, because this is what this training course is all about. It's about how the employer is going to perceive you in that job interview. If you come across as having a high level of knowledge and experience and a high level of confidence because of your self-esteem, they're going to see you having a strong job interview identity that will lead to an increase in job offers. What you focus on, you feel. This is why when you imagine yourself failing in a job interview, you get that feeling of anxiety. But as soon as you start to move that picture away from your mind's eye, that anxiety starts to diminish. This final exercise in regards to confidence and self-esteem is all about making you feel more powerful. So one way to increase confidence is to focus on confidence. So I want you to do this time is imagine yourself in a past time when you felt really confident about yourself. Ideally this will be in a previous job interview or recruitment event, or maybe in a workplace situation. But it could even be at home when you're out with friends and family. So think about a time that you was really confident. And as you imagine this really confident time, I want you to notice everything about you that makes you confident. So imagine you can see this confident version of yourself and make that picture big, bright and vivid. Like, how do you stand when you're at your most confident? How do you gesture? How do you walk? How do you hold your head? Listen to the voice of the confident version of you. Listen to their tonality, the language they choose, the length of their sentences. Notice how they pay attention to other people and how other people pay attention to what they have to say. Imagine that you could step into this confident version of yourself, so you could take on that posture, the gestures, the body language of the most confident version of you. Think about the self-talk, the positive self-talk that you give yourself when feeling really confident. What positive things do you say to yourself to make yourself achieve your goals, achieve your ambitions? What do you say to yourself to increase your internal level of confidence? And as you say these positive things to yourself and you're standing in this confident stance and your head is held a little bit higher, you can get that feeling of confidence now inside yourself and allow it to go stronger and stronger and stronger. Because whenever you want to feel confident, you can always imagine this confident version of you and allow that confident feeling to go stronger and stronger before each and every job interview. The world is interpreted differently by each individual person, depending on their personal filters created through their own experiences, beliefs and values. This means that two people seeing the same thing can attach different meaning to it. In a job interview, a late applicant due to a faulty car may be viewed by one employer as being lazy, but by the second as being unlucky because they also have a faulty car. In a job interview, framing affects how an applicant's answers is perceived. A glass half full or half empty has the same quantity of water, but one frame is perceived to be negative and the other positive. So imagine in a job interview you explain to an employer that you worked for a certain organisation. The employer looks up and replies by saying, "You work there? I thought everyone over there was lazy." The negative stereotype creates an emotional association between you and the employer's opinion of the lazy organisation. In this example, a reframe is required. "Yes, they are. That's why I'm applying for a position here. Your reputation tells me that you appreciate hard work, good ethics and quality. 3 things I personally value." In a job interview, you need to turn any negative statement, perceptions or opinions around by using the reframe method. Take a belief and look at it from a different viewpoint. Ask, what is the positive version of this statement? As an example, someone who feels they're too old has a high level of knowledge and experience. Someone is told that job hopping is a negative trait can talk about their various industry experience. In a job interview, focus on what you enjoy rather than what you dislike. Talk about your strengths, not your weaknesses. Give solutions, not problems. Now that you've been introduced to framing, you'll start to notice different frames everywhere you go. As an example, in a supermarket, 2 brands of yogurt will frame their goods differently. The first one might say, "This yogurt is 80% fat-free," and the second, "This yogurt contains only 20% fat." Both datasets are identical, but the chosen frame is likely to result in most people buying the 80% fat-free yogurt. Framing is powerful because it bypasses the slow, conscious mind and instead creates an emotional snap decision. With the yogurt example, "This yogurt will make me healthy." But in the recruitment process, this applicant seems ideal for the position we're advertising for. During the job interview, always create the most positive frame. Think about the words you choose and how those words are going to be perceived by the employer. Change your language to have a powerful impact. As an example, if an employer asks you about your sickness record, you can either say that you have had 2 days off during the last 12 months, or that you have been in work for 99% of the year. For any negatively framed interview questions, such as, do you think your age will be a barrier while working for a younger workplace? Or, can you explain the gaps on your CV? Does having worked in only one organisation limit the breadth of your experience and skills? For these and any other negative interview questions, you need to reframe the interviewer's negative stereotype. As an example, let's take the ageist interviewer. You can reframe the age unconscious bias in many different ways. As an example, you could talk about your experience rather than focusing on your age. You can explain how you can share best practice, shortcuts and processes that will help overcome barriers and achieve successful outcomes gained through your 10 years experience in the sector. Maybe you can joke a little bit and talk about being young at heart or looking older than you actually are. Or you could use stories, experiences and metaphor to get the employer to see you in a different viewpoint. As an example, you might say that when you started out that you worked in a younger workplace, but one of the members of staff was an older person who was a valuable team member because they became an unofficial mentor. There was the person we all went to for support, advice and guidance, and it was this particular person that helped us as a team to achieve the company objectives. So what I want you to do in this exercise is pause this video and I want you to write down a list of potential negative thoughts that an employer might have about you. If you've worked in many organisations over a short period of time, or you worked in one particular company for a long duration, maybe you're young or old, maybe you've got lots of gaps in your employment history. You might even have a criminal record or took some time off to be a parent. It doesn't matter what these perceived gaps are, or if they are in fact positive or negative, but what you need to do is think about if the employer will see this as a negative and how you can reframe that negative opinion so you become someone who's more suitable, more desirable for that particular role. We have now come to the end of part 5 of the job interview course, and we've got one more section to go where we're going to talk about interview questions and answers. In this final section we have talked about how you can overcome your interview anxiety. Most people, when they are anxious in job interviews, will visualize themselves failing in the recruitment process. That powerful thought in their mind's eye sends an emotional feeling to their body, which then cycles back up, creating a negative cycle. What you need to do to break that cycle is push that image away from your mind's eye, make it smaller and smaller and smaller, because that will reduce the associated negative feeling. We also know that deep rhythmic breathing and imagining yourself in a confident situation all help to boost your self-esteem. One of the other techniques to use is to think about how other people positively perceive you and write a list of all those traits and qualities that other people see in you, because you can use those skills and those traits in the job interview as selling points. We also delved into reframing and how people, when they meet you, may have a perceived opinion about one of your physical traits or characteristics, and you can return that around and turn it into a selling point by reframing the situation. Even when an employer has a negative opinion about you or about a past employer you've worked for, you can use the reframe technique to make them see you in a new light. And finally, we want to go back to some of the generic stuff that makes a positive impact in the recruitment process. Research tells us time and time again how strong eye contact, a confident handshake, having your head held high and a positive posture all makes you come across as being more confident. Even techniques such as initiating the conversation and asking the employees questions about things that you have in common always build up rapport. So what you need to be doing in this job interview course is thinking about the whole job interview process, how you come across to that employer and what you can do to be perceived to having a stronger job interview identity.